Welcome to episode 219 of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Saturday Down South and Texas Pete. On today's episode, we discuss the Jayden Daniels Heisman win, portal updates, early signing day, and we're going to take audience Q&A live through our new Super Chat feature on YouTube. If you haven't joined us for our YouTube and you're listening on podcast forum, we are here live at 8 Eastern time every Sunday night on the Saturday Down South YouTube page. You can find the show on SaturdayDownSouth.com and Apple and Spotify. Go share with your friends, people. Just go do it. And now, here's the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Football Uncensored, brought to you by Saturday Down South. Hey, first Super Chat. Let's go. That would be Evan Grimes. Feel like you're muted, Chris. I'm your host, Tyler Huck, and with me as always, co-host.
You can have that one, Tyler.
All right, sweet.
You're in that one.
Back live here on another 8 p.m. Eastern edition of Saturday Football Uncensored. How's it going, Chris?
Good, man. Real bummed because the season's over. That sucks.
Yeah.
But, we still have bowl games. We got, a ton of bowl games this weekend.
Yeah, I took Navy in the under.
I didn't even see who won.
See the end of the game?
Oh, that affected the over?
Yeah.
No.
That's that last safety. Put it over.
I was wondering if it would, but then they didn't mention anything on the broadcast.
Yeah, I actually got it at 28, so it pushed, but it was going to be a clear win, and I lost the Navy side, so that was tough.
I mean, betting an under at 28 is nasty.
It's nasty. It's the one where you just place the bet and then you don't watch the game.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that game, I think Bama had a basketball game against that fucking Loch Ness Monster center at Purdue. You seen this guy?
Yeah, the Zach Edey guy.
Yeah, he's 1,000,000 feet tall.
Yeah, he's a giant.
Yeah. What's up, James O'Quinn? Are we going to fight again this week?
What's going on in the chat?
So I watched part of that, and then I was like, "Oh yeah, the Army Navy game's on." I'm up and down with the Army Navy game a lot. It always depresses me because it's the last game of the year, but also it is really, really good tradition, and there's a lot of cool stories during the actual broadcast. That was cool. Yeah. So everything surrounding it, I love the fact. I used to hate the fact that it got its own day because it's not a great game usually, but I kind of love the fact that it gets its own day now, and it's everyone's always on board with that game.
Yeah, it's not a fun game to watch. That's for sure. A lot of triple option, a lot of 3 and out, maybe 4 yards total, and then punt. But it is cool to see just the atmosphere. And I would like just to check it off the bucket list one day when I start doing my annual. My dream is to get to the point where I just at least once a year, hopefully it'll be on a Florida State bye week, there'll be a huge game that I can go to and just check out different stadiums across the country. And I'd like to make it to that game at some point. That'd be cool.
Yeah. By the way, during the broadcast, maybe this is just me, but again, I was barely watching. I could hear it, right? And did you notice at all? Did it sound like Gary Danielson's sounded Thanks, Eddie. Noticeably happy that he was done with SEC stuff. I don't know if that's why. Thanks, Eddie. Booza
says, "Sirs, long-time listener, first-time super chatter. Love what you do. Also, shout out to winning and boozing." Booza, appreciate it very much, sir. Long-time listener since the winning and boozing days, and good buddy.
It's a wooden. I don't even know what you'd call it.
Yeah, it's a logo basically.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you very much. For those of you that don't know that have just joined in, we now have the super chat feature. So we will be taking live question and answer throughout the show tonight. So whenever you feel like you want something answered, put it in the super chat, stop what we're doing, or maybe finish our thought, and we'll answer it.
I won't. I definitely won't do that. I barely do that anyway.
Yeah, finish your thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen. All right, so last night, I don't think anyone was too surprised, but Jayden Daniels wins the Heisman. Pretty going away, I would say.
Jayden Daniels win the Heisman. Already off to a banging start here.
Tell him, Jayden Daniels, you go win that Heisman, buddy.
Yeah. He did. Now, I didn't think it was going to be close.
Wasn't really.
No, it was the closest one they've had since 2000 something. Marty Smith said.
Okay, well that really narrows it down. 2000,
probably 2009.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, Penix. Were you surprised that Penix was second?
Yes and no. Again, here's the thing, and I know it sounds like I'm beating like a dead horse at this point, but I'm really very passionate about this part. Okay, it makes no sense at all for Bo Nix to have been the clear-cut front runner for the Heisman for weeks, and then he goes out and plays in the Pac-12 championship and puts up 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he becomes the third. He falls to third. Like, I think that the right person won, who should have won. I'm just like, I just don't get it. Like, and all the people that are so mad afterwards about, like, because there are a lot of people, we'll get into it, that were upset that Jayden Daniels won it. I think they were upset that Jayden Daniels kind of want it going away, and they want to blame the SEC for anything and everything always. And I think that's like where that came from.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was just no bet. It was clear. I mean, if you look at the numbers, and so if he plays in the ReliaQuest Bowl, which I doubt he will, against Wisconsin, he's going to surpass Burrow's numbers for the year.
No, he won't.
So at the time of the award, so at the time of the award in 2019, Burrow had accounted for 51 total touchdowns and 5,004 yards. Entering Saturday night's ceremony, Daniels stood at 4,946 yards and 50 touchdowns, despite having played one fewer game. So if he plays the next game, he would eventually equal the amount of games that Burrow played.
I know. Been in my notebook all weekend. I got comparisons to his season against Burrow, Kyler Murray, Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, and then I've got another one comparing it through 12 games for Burrow. And I added this just like in here as well. Like, he's not going to break Burrow's 65 touchdowns and 6,000 yards record. Like that's not going to happen. But what I didn't understand about this is like, because I thought like all year long he's the best player. He's the best player, not all year long, but late in November I was like, he's the best player. And everything he did, it seemed like maybe like Nix had a bad game or Penix had like kind of an off game, but he never had an off game.
Yeah.
Like not once. And I love the fact that Cody Worsham and LSU took it upon themselves for the last month, and they were like, we're going to go get this kid the Heisman. Like we're going to go out and make it a focal point and put money and resources and effort into this. They put a thing out in Vegas, like a billboard out there during the Pac-12 championship game, like it reminded me to like vote for him for Heisman, which I've never understood why people do that. But nobody's like going by a billboard in Vegas that has a Heisman vote. It's like, you know what? Now I get it. All right. But they did like a series about him, like a 4-part series, and like just kind of like letting everyone know what, like, how great of a kid he is. But what they did that was more important than any of that, what like I liked the most as like somebody that really loves getting into like numbers and stuff, they decided that they were going to start putting out all of his numbers, just his at first. And like, here's how impressive the stats are. Then like a couple weeks later, as they continue to do that, they start doing comparisons to him and Nix and Penix, right? And then go out of their way to be like, they're having great seasons. I'm just saying, like, here are the direct comparisons. Then they started comparing it to the all-time great seasons in college football. And I started looking at that on Friday. And, like, you would have had to already submit your vote. But where I was shocked, and I like especially shocked that this was still like an argument, is if you look at his numbers in comparison to every Heisman winner in the history of the award. This is where he ranks in these categories. Total yards per game, right? 412 yards a game, ranks first all time amongst Heisman winners. Total yards per play, I think it was 10.7 or something like that, more than any other player that ever won the Heisman. Highest passer rating ever. It was like 200. He set an NCAA record for passer rating, 208.1. Highest QBR for a Heisman winner ever, second highest in the history of college football. Total yards per attempt, 11.7, higher than anyone else. Also the second highest in the last 15 years in college football. Adjusted yards per attempt, which I'll be honest, I don't understand that stat, but it was over 13, and that's the highest for any Heisman winner. Rush yards per carry, 8.4. Here's something that's wild for you.
By the way, I think adjusted accounts for dropped passes.
Okay. So he said, this is something that's wild is he set the NCAA all-time record for passer rating, and in the same year led every single rusher in the country with a minimum of 100 rushes in yards per carry. Keep going. Interceptions thrown. He only had 4, tied for the lowest ever. Your boy Charlie Ward was also up there. Points per game responsible for, he was like 25.7, was right under Burrow. And then completion percentage, and this is what I was like kind of shocked, was completion percentage, he was 4th. I mean, think about like how many years they've given away that award. And I just thought it was such a brilliant job from LSU to go out and like go get yourself a win. You went 9-3, but like circle the wagons a little bit, and like those people are very passionate about that team, and remind everyone like, hey, like this is not just like a good player on a good football team. This is one of the greatest seasons in college football history. We're just not talking about it for some reason because he lost 3 games. And that phrasing, I shouldn't even say that phrasing because I've seen it all day today. He didn't lose those 3 games. Let's be very clear about that. Like I made a graphic for that too. But in the 3 games they lost, Tyler, he averaged 435 yards per game, had 9 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. His defense allowed 47.3 points per game and 569 yards of offense. Like, what do you want him to do?
Yeah, I was going to say, is this, I mean, like, it's awesome for LSU that he won, but is this like a referendum on that staff? It's like, how could you waste the amount of talent you had on offense this year by basically not ever being in competition for even winning your division?
All right. I see. We had this on the pod before, and I don't like that as much. I don't think it's like, I don't like to say that like they wasted his talent there, because really what they did was they got the most out of him, I think, than anybody thought they would have, and he got the most out of them. It's a really cool story that we've talked about it a decent amount, but like, you know, how many times do I have to hear about fucking Bo Nix and his daddy leaving Auburn because they were demanding stuff from Harsin and didn't get it or whatever? Like, this is a really cool story. Remember when he left Arizona State, they went to his locker and started throwing his shit out?
Yeah, I don't know if that was that ever confirmed, because that just seems like like just knowing the kid now and seeing him, you know, it seems like that would be impossible, but who knows? Maybe he was super immature as a freshman.
Yeah.
Shocking that someone would be immature at 18.
I hated all the talk about how, like, I thought Penix and Nix both had really, really good years. But when you break it down from a number standpoint, and it's like he didn't have a bad week. He only had 4 interceptions. And I saw people really some mental gymnastics about like every possible way they could try to. Well, they lost 3 games. Okay, there's like 17 Heisman Trophy winners in like the history of the award that have lost 3 games or more. Right? Like I mean, RG3 did it in 2012. Yeah. Like that's not a criteria for it. And I thought that like it was weird to see that. I thought Penix they had a really good season, but like, you know, I will say that Marvin Harrison Jr. being there was kind of stupid.
Yeah, I felt that way as well. So your top 10 in order were Jayden Daniels, Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Marvin Harrison. So the 4 that were there. Number 5 was Jordan Travis. 6, Jalen Milroe. 7, Ollie Gordon. So those were 3 players that we named as people we thought could have been in New York. Yeah. And then Cody Schrader getting some love, which was nice to see. At 8, Blake Corum, and then JJ McCarthy, which I'm not quite sure why he would be in the conversation. But
no. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is my favorite part of the Heisman afterwards, is when you can start seeing where votes went.
Someone voted him first.
Somebody voted for JJ McCarthy first as the best player in the country.
Yeah.
Now, I just want you to think about this. Like, like usually if you're the best player in the country, you should not be penalized if your team loses. But if they win, it should have something to do with you. So I don't know, if your team doesn't throw the football in the entire second half against a top 10 opponent, that just pretty much tells me you're not that valuable.
Yeah, and like Cody Schrader had a first place vote too. I think that's actually more understandable than
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy getting in first place. But
Yeah.
didn't you have some numbers on McCarthy? No.
I do. Do you want to get into it now? I'm fired up, man.
We might as well, right? I mean,
I'm trying to think of what else we had from the Heisman standpoint. Again, I just thought it was I thought it was super weird that people were trying so hard to argue against that kid, because it's like, any way you want to look at it, here's what he did all season. Here's what he did against ranked teams. Here's what he did against top 50 defenses. And then like you layer it and you compare it to now, not only are these numbers wildly impressive, here's what Bo Nix did. Here's what Michael Penix did. And it's like way above. And then it's like, oh, and then by the way, here's what everyone all time did. Like we talk all the time about, Burrow, Tebow, Cam, and the fact that he was there was a stat that this guy put together of like some of like the 9 quarterback stats, and it was some of the ones I already told you, where it was like yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, yards per game, blah blah blah. He was the first overall player in Heisman history. He ranked number 1 in 7 of the 9.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Is there a graphic in here that you wanted to show
about JJ McCarthy?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in the infant stages. We're not going to pass this around yet. However, so somebody asked me, they were like, hey, you should do a deep dive on JJ McCarthy and his numbers before Connor Stallions was suspended and after. Now, I want to preface this by saying they had some, they played really good teams finally. They didn't play anybody at the Pulse until the second week of November.
Yeah.
So part of it comes from that as well. I'll read you some first, because it gets even more weird. JJ McCarthy in 7 games with Connor Stallions. This is when he looked like a front runner for the Heisman. He had 78% completion percentage. Was averaging like 240 yards a game, and they were already saying, well, he's pulled like in the third quarter or whatever. He scored 2 or more touchdowns in every single game but one. So 6 of the first 7 games. He scored 3 touchdowns in like half of them. Okay. In the last 6 games without Stallions, that is very different. And I mean very different.
Ooh.
The craziest stat here, and I'll have to do a side-by-side later for it. It's a good-looking graphic.
Yeah, it is.
It's a good-looking graphic.
That's Stallions there on the left?
That is.
What a name.
I need to put some spy glasses on or something.
Now, did you spell Stallions right?
It's only 1 L.
Oh, wow.
Which is weird, because that's what they're going to end their season with. Suck it. But the numbers were crazy, right? And again, I know they're playing better competition, but the numbers were really good. What's most interesting to me is since that game, because all their numbers have dropped, like their yard or their total points per game as a team, they've dropped like 6 points per game. They're down like 71 yards per game from total offense. The numbers across the board are down. But in 4 of the 6 games since then, he failed to score a touchdown. That really stands out. This kid did not score a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games. And listen, he has 5 total, right? 4 of those 5 were against Michigan State, the very first game after he was gone.
Yeah. And Stallions had already made his mark there on that game.
Yeah, exactly.
So for those that aren't watching on YouTube, his total yards per game dropped from basically 240 to 180. Total touchdowns in 7 games was 17 before Stallions, 5 in 6 games after. And like Chris just said, what did you say? 4 of them?
Yeah.
3 of them? Yeah. 6. And I was going to say too, they finished the season with 2 really good defenses in Iowa and Ohio State.
Right.
You also played Maryland and who else?
Maryland
struggled.
It was Michigan State, Purdue, and then they got to Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, and Iowa. And that Maryland game. Here's another thing too, dude. So that first game, Michigan State, he had 295 yards of total offense, right? And then Purdue, he had 335 passing. So he put up good numbers in the air in those games. Both those teams suck. And you're right. I added the Michigan State game, but Connor Stallions was suspended midweek then. He'd already been involved with that. But that Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State, and Iowa stretch where he doesn't put up over 150 yards passing in any of them, that is
Maybe they should have been penalized for not having a good offense.
To close the year with 4 games and go from like the level of production he had to 0 touchdowns in 5 of your last 6, that's bad. That's bad.
Real bad. That's gonna make you feel good going into that game.
Yeah.
And by the way, they're like really good center that was out for the year also at some point, which could lead to some of that as well.
Yeah.
Portal's been active. Oregon lands Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
That I think is going to be a really good situation for both parties there.
I don't.
Walter Nolan also visited there this weekend. We'll see what happens there. What's crazy about the transfer portal, if your team likes to dabble, is that if you think about high school recruiting, it's usually best to get the last visit if you really want to try to land a kid. In the portal, it's like 100% the opposite. Like if you really want to get a kid, you really need to get them on that first visit because a lot of these kids they kind of already know where they're thinking and they're just going to go visit that school. And if it's good, they're going to commit. But yeah, that was a big pickup for Oregon. Anything else you saw in the portal that kind of caught your eye?
I think a lot of people thought. He was going to go to Mississippi State and follow Levy there. I tell you what, I don't care how this sounds, and I don't think we have a ton of Mississippi State fans in the chat or anywhere anyway. If you think that I'm spending my 6th and final fucking year in college in Starkville, no, absolutely not. So,
especially if you're a recruit like Gabriel, who a big team was going to go after him. You're also going to spend your last year with the opportunity to win a championship potentially.
So here's what I think the selling point for this is for Oregon is what you just said for one, right? Because I honestly think it's a step down. But we also thought when Bo Nix went there that he was not going to be that good. I mean, Gabriel's a more accomplished quarterback leaving Oklahoma than Nix was leaving Auburn, right? I don't know if he's got some of the same physical tools. I don't think he runs as well as Bo Nix. I don't think he has the same arm as Bo Nix. But I think if you're trying, you got to make sure you have a guy. And Dane Lanning is going to, like, he wants to win more than anything. That's just like he's cut from that same cloth as Kirby and Saban. Like, so he wants to win now. And getting Dylan Gabriel, who's put up good games and good numbers everywhere he's gone, I think what you're telling that kid, especially if you're having to recruit him, is, hey, listen, you were Bo Nix before. Oh God, do you remember Bo Nix before he was at Auburn? She doesn't even listen. But thank you.
Allie Davison says best podcast in the business. War Eagle. Hot. She is hot.
Yeah.
Hot listeners, guys and girls. You know.
All right, and also for $10.99, I'll show you my feet. So there's that.
Yeah.
So I think your selling point is if you're trying to get him and get a commitment to him, like you said before anyone else does. I think that the way you pitch that guy is, do you remember Bo Nix before, like when he left Auburn and came here, to what he turned into, and like he has nothing left to accomplish in college. I'm not saying he's done a ton, he's won a bunch of like titles or anything, but like he has nothing left to accomplish in college. So his next step is trying to get to the league. And if you look at what they did with Bo Nix, that's one of the best turnaround stories for a quarterback that we've seen in I don't even know how long. So, I think it's a great selling point.
Yeah. A lot of these top recruits that are in the portal right now, I think, are kind of slow playing it, or they know where they want to go and they're just slow playing it because they don't want it to be obvious tampering. But this next 2 weeks between what you got going on with the portal and then what you got going on with early signing period is going to be absolute. Like these coaches, man, like it just never stops.
No. It's also like maybe that's why like those bowl games are like get more meaningless because it's like fuck, I'm tired.
Yeah, and like half these kids on my roster that are supposed to play in the Orange Bowl are like threatening to leave, so I've got to get them. It's you don't feel too bad because these guys. I mean, I saw Harbaugh just re-upped with Michigan for like $11 million a year. I mean, it's just these guys make a shitload of money, man. So I don't feel that bad for them.
No, well, see, but this is one problem I think with it is that like you can have that attitude and say I don't feel bad for them because they make a ton of money. Because there's one thing I've learned about, especially from the way people are acting on social media, is you're not allowed to have opinions if you have money. Like I see it like all the time. Like when like somebody's like was like like especially with the coaches, like the Nick Saban thing all summer about like how he didn't want kids to get paid. Like he didn't give a shit. He's just probably got like I don't even know how to phrase this. He bought like some like Mercedes deal that was like hundreds of millions of dollars. He doesn't care about fucking kids. He's been paying kids for decades. Shut up. So the whole thing, I think, with like with the way the system is now set up, you can have that attitude. I think that's a fair attitude, but you also cannot have that attitude and then get mad when your coach isn't landing recruits or your coach isn't like, performing at like the level that you expect him to. Because it's like, Jesus Christ, it is so. There's never any downtime.
No, never.
Also, you imagine having to like make a phone call. You know how many phone calls they have to make to these kids recruiting? Like,
oh well, they've got these giant recruiting staffs now that are like reaching out on. I don't know if it's like on behalf of the coach, like you're mimicking him, or you just have relationships with these people who just work in the background nonstop to just text these kids, DM these kids, make them edits. Like it's just what a crazy business.
Yeah. Also, somebody brought this up too. Hayes Fawcett is about to make fucking like $1 million, dude. He's the guy who's every graphic that they put out is like from him, and he's gonna get him out of high school. He's gonna get him in the portal. And they're like they're sick graphics, but I mean, yeah, I just think that like for me, if I was a coach, the absolute fucking worst part of my day, like without a doubt, would be like, hey, practice is over, meetings are over, you've already put in like 12 hours. You need to go call that fucking 4-star lineman from Washington, see if he's still interested. Like, hey, Buckaroo, how you doing?
Buckaroo. Please don't call anybody Buckaroo.
Should we? He didn't pay for this, Jay, but can we talk about Shohei Ohtani?
Dude, listen, this has I hate the Dodgers, so like I knew that he was going to go to the Dodgers. They're the only type of team that would throw out this kind of money these days. Like not even the Yankees or the Red Sox, like none of those teams do this kind of shit. This has a massive, like obviously it's going to be really great. They have 5 former MVPs on the team now. But this also has the opportunity to be like a horrific contract long term for them. Because by the way, he's 30. This is his second TJ.
He's 30.
He's 30.
Did you call it TJ?
Tommy John.
No, I got it. I just
but you're paying him like he's in his perfectly healthy form, which is an elite hitter and an elite pitcher. But what's to say that he's going to be able to do both of those for 10 years straight after he's already had massive injuries twice on the same arm? I
mean, yeah.
So basically, at that point, you're paying $700 million for a DH.
Right. What's crazy too is that like he had like, I mean, one, he's really good, right? Like he's obviously really good, but like I'm glad he got paid because I do think he's not generational. That's like a once in a lifetime. I'm so fucking tired of people calling him like new Babe Ruth or whatever. Like no, Babe Ruth was not like this at all. Except he probably initially struggled with the English language just as much. Like that's about it.
Well, it's probably because he was hammered.
Right, all the time. Like, give me another hot dog. I just like 70 million is insane. And also like how many fucking off seasons are they gonna do this? Like I feel like they do this every single year and they get somebody else that's like, the best prospect, not like best prospect, but like they sign Freeman, they sign Mookie Betts, they sign like who am I missing?
Well, they've got Kershaw. Are you talking about the former MVPs?
No, I'm just saying in general. Like honestly, Kershaw's not like a nothing at this point because
true, yeah,
probably one of the best pitchers of our lifetime. But the fact that like he legitimately, like this isn't just like social media talk, like he's trash. He legitimately cannot pitch in the postseason, so it doesn't even matter if you get there.
Yeah, their pitching staff is somewhat weak, I think, or a question mark. I mean, you had the Urias guy had like a domestic issue, and I think he's a free agent anyways. They signed Bauer. He had a domestic issue.
No, he didn't. Let's not even start that. But no, he didn't. That's wild as shit.
The Walker Buehler guy who's been out for the better part of like 2 years, it feels like.
Yeah.
Kershaw is not what he was. I mean, but now apparently this like superstar Japanese pitcher may also sign with the Dodgers.
No, what?
So Ohtani deferred almost his entire contract to keep the Dodgers within like a reasonable collective the tax luxury tax, and to help them form a better competitive team. So I don't know, whatever. I hope they continue to lose in the postseason.
Same. I'm just so sick. It's only one team that does it. It's only one team that does it, and it's always them, and it's just annoying. Also, my two favorite tweets about this was one, he signed on December 7th. They announced it, or like December 8th or something like that. Somebody tweeted out that said, "This is not the first time a Japanese man has surprised the Americans in an early December Saturday or Sunday morning or something like that." And it was like, Jesus Christ. Yeah. And the other one was, this is so crazy. He just signed a 10-year, $700 million contract. When that contract is done 10 years from now, Bobby Bonilla will still be getting paid by the Mets for another 3 years.
That's great.
Anyway, let's get back to football talk.
Early signing day coming up. I'll go ahead and share my screen here.
Thank God.
Right now, the current rankings for the top 10 are as follows. Georgia at 1. No shocker there. Ohio State, Florida State, Bama, Miami, Florida, Oregon, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Texas. I think there's going to be a ton of shakeup. You're
pretty big into recruiting, aren't you?
I am pretty big into recruiting because obviously it's been proven that the teams with the best players ultimately win the championships. And
are invited to the playoff.
Ooh. So I've been following since about 2006 was the first year that I really started getting into it. And obviously when signing period changed, it kind of changed everything. Most of these kids are committed by the summer, and it used to be that all the huge recruits would commit on signing day.
Mm-hmm.
And now pretty much your whole class, like if you look at like Georgia has 28 commits. There's probably not that much room left for like a huge signing day where they're finding out about all these new commits. But what now has changed and has kind of become big, especially within the last like couple weeks leading into signing day, is flips.
Yeah.
Kids just flipping all over the place. A bunch of flapjacks.
Just flopping everywhere.
So this board is going to change drastically by the time we get to December 20th, which I believe is the signing period, early signing period date. I also think like, especially with NIL now, and even though it's not supposed to be for inducements, like clearly it is. I think you're almost better off like waiting till the second signing period when people like are trying to fill out maybe a class where they missed something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm the only top 20 D-linemen left on the board, so my price just went up.
That's not a bad point.
You know, I'm surprised more kids aren't doing that. But, so Auburn's been coming on strong. Apparently their NIL game is kind of like off the charts. I'm a little worried as a Florida State fan because we've got a 5-star safety that's kind of flirting around with Auburn now, KJ Bolden.
And he visited Georgia this week.
They visited him. Kirby went in home with him. Hugh Freeze went in home with him. So we still have our official and our in home with him with Norvell, but we got to hold on there. The number 1 recruit in the country, Jeremiah Smith, was at Florida State this weekend. I'm hoping, I've heard some good news there. I'm hoping we can flip him. That'd be awesome. But Auburn, I'm telling you, man, they're going to have something to say about signing day. I think they're going to have some major flips coming in the next 2 weeks.
And the big one they keep talking about is that 5-star receiver that's committed to Bama. What's his name?
Ryan Williams.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw any of the numbers he put up in the state championship game. He had like it's like fucking ridiculous. I think he had like a rushing touchdown, a punt return for a touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, and that was all by halftime.
He's a 2025 commit though, so unless he's
he could also enroll early. Also, I just said I didn't realize that when we were in school, like the whole 4 years of graduate thing was like really, you could bend that a lot however you wanted to. Apparently, in high school.
Hugh Janus, look at that.
What? What?
See the super chat, Hugh Janus. Give us a super chat. He said, "Why is the Tennessee class falling so much?"
So
Yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen exactly why. I mean, I don't know if it's because they just haven't landed anybody recently, or I haven't seen anybody noteworthy that's flipped recently. But yeah, you haven't been hearing as much about Tennessee. But I mean, the Mike Matthews kid from Parkview, the
Yep.
receiver they landed, was a huge get. Because I believe he was down at Georgia and Clemson, which Georgia's the in-state school, and Clemson's obviously historically put out really good receivers. And then you got an edge player right out of Bama's territory in Jordan Ross.
Yeah, that one sucked.
5-star. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I think Tennessee. I'm not like saying that the program's just like nobody thinks they're good anymore, but they kind of had a little bit of the shine come off this year after the really good season last year.
All right, I'll say this. I think, and I love the name, by the way, but I think that this team, more than any other SEC team, will have a bigger bounce back next year than any other team, like hands down.
Because of the QB?
I think that because it's not just the QB, it's the QB and all the receiver talent they're bringing in. Like, that you were going to take a step back when you lose somebody like Hendon Hooker and you replace him with somebody like Joe Milton. That's just a factual thing, like, part of life. I don't know why Nico didn't get more snaps, but I will also say that I think that he is, like, I haven't heard anyone second guess his like evals or like, recruiting rankings or anything at any point. That kid looks like he is the man. Like he's going to be like the man next year. Jesus, Evan.
We have to read it. Evan Grimes, thank you for the super chat. He says, "New Alley, FU dogs." Go dogs.
Yeah. We can just call her Alley. I think it's probably the best move.
Yeah, I've been on that train for weeks now.
Especially for me. No, so I think that Tennessee, with what they're going to start bringing back in there, because here's the thing too, what they're pitching those kids now is still part of the dream. Like, they're not going to be playing right now, like come be a part of this and turn this around. And again, that's a program that used to recruit on a national level, and they have a very, very hungry fan base. I think that Tennessee is going to be I think they're going to be really good in this era, because their fans are just too eager to fail. But I do think that they're going to be a huge, huge comeback team for next year.
Interesting.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, going back to recruiting talk, I mean, there's going to be a lot of shakeup in the top 10. I mean, Auburn's creeping up now. They're at number 11. You see them making a big move. But historically, if you follow Bud Elliott over at CBS Sports and 247, every year he puts out his article of the basically the teams that can realistically win a championship.
Yeah.
Based on the blue chip ratio, which is having more than 50%. Basically, if your roster is not more than 50% blue chip, you have no shot. Historically, it could happen, but so I was just looking at this year. Like, Washington's ranked 40th, so I don't know what I don't think they maybe historically are that low, but I'm sure they're not in the top. I bet they don't have a 50% blue chip roster, which should tell you all you should need to know against like a Texas or a Bama or a Michigan in the championship game.
Yeah.
History.
Yeah, it really has lost a lot of its luster from the people that are coming in, and I think this too. It lost a lot of its luster for me when they moved up the early signing day, because it's just too hard to keep up with. But again, with NIL and the portal, that's changed everything. It's like, because how do you get excited? How do you get excited about this? You know what I mean? Because everyone knows. I don't think there's anybody that's that ignorant that is like, no, nobody's gonna leave our program. Okay.
Did you see that USC today hired the North Dakota State head coach as their linebackers coach?
What?
Yeah, the guy that has won 2 FCS national titles, 2019 and 2021, has a 60-10 record over the last 5 years at North Dakota State. Just left North Dakota State and joined Lincoln Riley's defensive staff.
What? Not even to be a coordinator?
I think he's got one of those titles that's like associate head coach, as well. Like, my guess, he would have a large say in things, but yeah, his position coach is linebacker coach, and they just hired USC's defensive coordinator. UCLA is to be USC's, so unless they're co-defensive coordinators, he got like the associate head coach role, which is just basically probably a bump in pay, put it on the resume, have a little bit more in the game plan.
Here's my question about that, because that's such a. I got to add a bunch of stuff to the end of this term paper because I got to meet a word quota. Like, I mean, you're associate head coach, but like if you put it on the resume, everyone still in that job is like, okay.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant to the regional manager. But I also did not. I saw it like that briefly on Twitter earlier today. Did not realize that was the head coach that left. That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
I wonder how much could he have been making as a head coach at that school?
You got to figure he's probably the top paid head coach in the FCS level. So I don't know, maybe a couple million at the most.
Yeah.
But anyways, kind of a slow week. We will still record on Wednesday because there's bowl games starting on Saturday.
Yeah.
Will take us all the way through the new year, which I cannot wait. I love it. I love being at work and just flipping on the TV and there's a Georgia State, Louisiana game. And I'm like, you know what? Live line's 3.5. I'm going to jump. I've never watched either one of these teams play. I'm going to go on Georgia State. I just love that.
Dude, we're doing this bowl preview show that we have to do for like XL Media. And we're doing it with like somebody from Sports Betting Time. It's a sister
400K, by the way, is what's in the chat saying that head coach made it.
400K?
Now I can see why you would want to take any job, really.
What do you mean?
Like to make $400,000 to be a head coach of like a national title type, like that's nothing.
Okay, that's a good point. He's making $80,000 a year. That's sick.
Florida's defensive coordinator Florida State just re-upped their D coordinator for $1.8 million a year.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. And he doesn't have to live in North Dakota anymore.
Yeah, which is great. He gets to live in LA.
I mean, LA sucks, but like I also like that.
Yeah,
sick.
It's become so just like like everyone's into themselves.
I think he's gonna come back to like my favorite part of this would be if they won the national championship and he like shows up to like the banquet. He's like, "What's up, guys? Sorry I'm late. Just kind of just was chilling earlier, thinking about some of these like good vibes you guys have been giving me all year," and just like wearing like
he's got like a tan somehow.
Yeah.
Like, well, where have you been?
Anyway. No, I think that that's still fucking bizarre to me and very wild that somebody would do that. All right, Evan and Jay, no fighting in the chat.
Yeah.
No fighting in the chat. Both of you are
Well,
great.
if you guys want to keep super chatting each other and
if you guys want to fight for money, then we will do that. It seems very illegal in most places, but we'll allow it to happen. Okay, so what else do we talk about? This feels like what I want to say about the bowl thing. We're doing this bowl video, and I hope all of you watch. It should be actually like really good content. I'm not going to be spearheading any of like the deep dives, I don't think, because it's like there's just so many bowls and it's so hard to get like valuable information on all of them. But there's some pretty decent matchups early on.
Yeah. So here, why don't we pull up the bowl schedule?
Put that thing up.
Toot that thing up.
Is that pop lock and drop it?
Yeah, it was. All right. So I'll just take this from CBS. So this week coming up, we've got. You mentioned there's some good matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Just searching here. For this first week, it's a little slim.
Is it not? Zoom in. I can't see shit.
Okay. Hold, please. We've got Georgia Southern versus Ohio in the Myrtle Beach Bowl, 11 a.m. on December 16th. Howard versus FAMU at noon on December 16th. Jacksonville State versus Louisiana.
That sounds like a made up. Like that sounds like something you would see like roll across from NCAA 14. Like Jacksonville State beat Louisiana College and University today.
Yep, in the New Orleans Bowl down there in Bayou. App State versus Miami of Ohio in the Cure Bowl on the same day. December 16th has a load of them here. New Mexico State versus Fresno State. That's actually kind of a good game.
Yeah.
It's played in New Mexico in the New Mexico Bowl. Boise State versus UCLA, maybe a decent game in the
I
LA
think that's
Bowl.
gonna be a good game. UCLA, it makes no sense to me. That's like a pretty good football team. They're playing on December 16th. Like last year, Oregon State played in that game against Florida. They won and got to like their 10th win or something, like their 9th win, but they're playing December 16th.
Yeah. You have the Texas Tech and Cal matchup in Shreveport, Louisiana, Independence.
Wait, the Independence Bowl is this Saturday?
This Saturday at 9:15 on ESPN.
It's usually like very late in December. That's weird.
The Texas Tech Raiders. If those don't tickle your fancy, Chris, December 18th, we've got Western Kentucky and Old Dominion in the famous Toastery Bowl.
All right, I take that question. What is a toastery?
You should know it's famous.
It's very true.
Did that replace the Mayo Bowl? Because
no, nothing replaced the Mayo Bowl.
Oh yeah, okay. So that's also in Charlotte later. So we will go over these games probably painfully this week. See if we can find some lines.
Yeah, we'll just do strictly gambling.
Yeah, I'm not gonna break down. I'm not gonna break down the Cure Bowl.
That might be the best one. Also, speaking of the Cure Bowl, because that's the HBCU Bowl in Atlanta.
No, that's the Celebration Bowl.
Oh yeah, never mind. We need to talk about something for a second.
Okay.
Did you see the lineman that committed to Colorado?
Jordan Seaton?
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 O lineman in the high school ranks? Yes.
Did you see what he said at the end of his little commitment?
Well, I think you should just tell the listeners.
He said they asked him why he was going, why people should go to Colorado with him. And he had a couple things about they're going to turn that program around, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, why would you, at the end of the day, why would you not want to go help somebody that looks like you? Which is, I think, a fair point, and why one of the reasons why Deion Sanders is going to do really, really well at recruiting. That's why I think he would kill it at recruiting in like the Southeast. Like at an SEC school, I don't think he would ever be out recruited. I mean, well, he probably would, but you know what I mean. I thought that was a little bit weird though to say it, because if it was like, I feel like it was a odd. I don't know if it was an honest way to close his commitment, or if it was just a definitive statement. So then today, there's a video that surfaced about one of Colorado's assistant coaches who put out a video saying they're recruiting this kid, and in the middle of their recruiting visit, the mom gets a text from another team, another coach who's also recruiting him, and said, "Hey, now don't go down there and drinking all that Kool-Aid, and we still want you here in like whatever school it was." And in the live video, this man put out a comment at the end of it saying that the reason he said the don't drink the Kool-Aid thing was he was trying to bring up race. I just how do you feel about this? With the way I feel like this is going to be an issue with recruiting versus Deion anyway. I don't think Deion even cares. I don't think Deion gives a shit. I think he genuinely wants to go out there and be the best coach, best recruiter, get the best talent, all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was such a weird thing to have somebody on staff putting out a video like that. What the fuck are you doing?
That's 2023, man. That's just,
I guess.
Yeah, I can't deal with stuff like that, man. It's just it's almost doesn't even deserve attention. It's just really
fair.
Come on, dude.
I will say this. I thought about this the other day because that kid Jordan Seaton going there. I don't think he's necessarily going to leave Colorado. I don't think that's his final landing spot. But it's going to be very interesting to see how much he likes this job and how much he's willing to give himself to this job when his son and Travis Hunter are gone.
Which is going to be after next year. And by the way, I'm actually probably more excited to see how they do next year versus what they were going to do this year, because this year was always going to be tough. You came in, you tried to flip an entire roster, which was something we've never seen before.
Yeah.
It didn't really work out. They started out well, but I mean, they never got better during the season. They just continued.
Do you think it would have worked out better if they didn't make the same approach?
I think so, because I think you've seen a lot of kids transfer right out of there after a year. I just don't think the culture was where it needs to be yet. Yeah, and that's really going to be tough to do in year one, especially in this new era that we're in. So, you could use year one and you say, look, it didn't work out, but now we're getting our guys in the program. And if they go out next year and they win 4 or 5 games again, like, okay, you can do all the talking you want about, like, come find me, I'm easy to find, all that.
Yeah.
But if you can't win more than 5 games and then your son leaves, like, what are we going to do now?
Yeah.
You know? So I'm actually even more interested in going into next year about what that's going to look like.
I'll give you a hot take on that though, real quick. Is if you can't win, if you only win 5 games next year, I don't know that it matters that much. Like I mean, because think about this, dude. Think about how bad and how down bad the Colorado football program was before he got there.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I mean, they only won 4 games, but like the financial side of it, which is what matters a lot to these universities, like that part is like, you know, he's excelled there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's brought more excitement and money into that school than they've seen since the 90s.
I can't wait till we get the report that comes out about that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, well, we're at 50 minutes. I don't think, we don't need to stretch the podcast anymore. There's nothing really else to talk about. But, yeah, looking forward to bowl season. We will be probably, especially for the first week and a half to 2 weeks of bowl season, we're probably going to be more towards the gambling aspect, I would think, more than trying to break down Texas Tech and Cal. But we'll still leave the lines open. So don't forget, if you have anything you want to talk about for a pod, give us a call on our line. It was this year I was super happy how it turned out. I think it ended up being like one of the best parts of the show this year. We got a lot of voicemails.
Yeah.
There was never a show where we could use all of the voicemails because it would have just taken up the entire show. We got tons of them. We obviously had the fan favorites that would call in every week, and we tried to play those. But we got new callers every week. It was really cool. So don't forget to call the hotline, 770-674-8233. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends. Thank you for all the people that were in the super chat tonight. We started out for the first time. I think we made more than we thought we would. And for those of you that are wondering, like, what are we paying for? It's really just for us to grow the show, for you guys to have more cool content for us. We don't have a huge budget to go and travel around, different games in the fall like we would like to. So this is just going to help us through the off season, kind of build up a bank of money for us to use and go out to different college towns across the season next fall and hang out with you guys and get cool content, show it on the pod and stuff like that. So we really appreciate you guys donating for this episode. We'll continue to do it when we do our live shows. Anything else you got before we sign off here?
That's it.
All right, man. Well, this has been fun. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. We really appreciate you guys sharing the pod, and go give us 5 stars and give us a review on Apple and Spotify. For Chris, I'm Tyler. We will talk to you guys later this week.